Welcome to our explainer. Today, we are diving into a really fascinating scientific paper that could completely change how we think about treating HIV.
For millions of people, an HIV diagnosis means taking medication every single day for the rest of their lives just to keep the virus from taking over.
But what if that wasn't the case? What if a short, targeted treatment could actually empower the body to control the virus all on its own? Well, that's the story we're getting into today, a kind of scientific detective case that points to that exact possibility.
Okay, so to really get this, we first need to understand the current landscape, what we're up against. The standard of care right now is something called antiretroviral therapy, or ART. Now, don't get me wrong, ART is amazing. It's incredibly effective at suppressing the virus. But here's the trap. If you stop the therapy, the virus almost always comes roaring back. And that is exactly why the holy grail in HIV research is what's called a functional cure. You'll notice the goal isn't to completely erase every last trace of the virus. Instead, it's to train the body's own immune system to keep it under control indefinitely, finally freeing people from that lifelong daily therapy.
So, with that in mind, let's turn to a recent study that presented a real puzzle. Scientists decided to test a totally different approach, and honestly, the results were pretty startling.
Instead of using standard ART, the researchers took macaque monkeys, which were infected with a similar virus called HIV, and gave them a short 3-dose course of these things called broadly neutralizing antibodies, or BNAbs for short. Think of them like lab-made super antibodies. And the result of this short treatment? A staggering 77% of the monkeys that got the therapy were able to control the virus for years, long after the treatment stopped.
Now, this is where it gets really mind-blowing. Let's put that number in perspective. With standard ART, achieving this kind of long-term control happens in maybe 5 to 15% of cases. So jumping from that to 77%, that is a massive leap forward. And it created this central mystery. Why was this short-term antibody therapy so incredibly effective?
To solve this puzzle, the researchers had to get creative. They didn't just use test tubes and microscopes. They actually built a sophisticated digital laboratory. What they did was create a detailed mathematical model that could simulate exactly what's going on inside the body, that complex dance between the virus, the immune system, and these different therapies. And this model had all the key players on the board. You've got the virus itself trying to replicate, the target cells it loves to infect, the body's own immune soldiers, called effector cells, trying to fight back, and of course, the BNAb therapy they were testing. So, by running all these complex simulations over and over, the model started to reveal something profound, something really fundamental about the nature of the infection itself.
So here's the crucial point. The model predicted that the infection isn't a one-way street. It actually has two possible destinations, two potential outcomes. On one hand, you have the typical path, progressive disease. That's where the virus wins and the immune system just gets exhausted. But, and this is the big but, there's another stable state, lasting control, where the immune system actually gains the upper hand. The model showed that the infection can literally be switched from that bad path over to the good one.
And this brings us right back to the final clue in our mystery. Why are these BNAbs so good at flipping the switch while standard ART just isn't? Well, the answer seems to lie in the multiple, powerful ways that BNAbs work, what scientists call their pleiotropic effects, which is just a fancy way of saying they do a lot of different things at once. And this chart just lays it out so clearly. Look, both therapies lower the amount of virus in the body, which gives the immune system a much-needed break. But only the BNAb therapy does something more, something absolutely crucial. It actively enhances and stimulates the immune response. It primes the army.
You can think of it like this. ART basically hits the pause button on the virus. But as soon as you take your finger off that button, the fight starts all over again. The BNAbs, on the other hand, are like a training camp for your immune system. They suppress the virus while, at the same time, they're priming your effector cells, creating this army that's ready to take control the moment the virus resurges.
So let's move on and see how this all builds towards a completely new horizon for how we treat HIV. So when you put it all together, what this research gives us isn't just a promising result, it's a whole new framework. It tells us that a functional cure might not be about completely wiping out the virus, but about tilting that delicate balance between the virus and our immune system decisively in our favor. This study suggests that the most powerful weapon in the fight against HIV might have been our own immune system all along. It just needed the right coach. And that leaves us with a very, very hopeful question for the future.